Greetings, one and all, from the White Mountains of Arizona. It's a beautiful mapping morning for those witchy folks, those pagans among us. Tara's been celebrating all morning. It's a little bit of an overcast day, but the sun is shining now, and we're ready to do some channeling. You might hear some shotguns in the background. We have some neighbors who are blasting away. But we want to focus on what we call timeline jumping. You could call it portal hopping. I don't know what you want to call it. But Tara and I have been doing some serious spiritual work off camera. And we're now trying to consciously jump timelines. Oops, I tapped myself. Let's go this way. We're trying to consciously change timelines. We believe that reality is basically a canvas. You can use any paints you want. There's an infinite number of timelines. And it's just a matter of choosing the timeline that you want. And that's what we are trying to do consciously. But, we want to get some more information on it. We want to learn more about it. We're in the early stages. Basically, what we did is we channeled the Atul, the Anasazi, and they gave us 5 steps on how to do it. And maybe in the B-roll, we'll include the 5 steps that we came up with. We didn't come up with it. The Atul did. And we gave it a go. So basically, we wanted to try it out and see how it would go. So what we did is, Tara and I really would like a hogan on our property. And that's the old Diné or Navajo dwelling, basically. And we want one up here so that we can live in harmony with the land. It's very low, environmentally impactful. So we just want to live like the natives, I guess. So we tried to get on a timeline where that happens. And so we did this meditation, this 5-step program. And our reality started to shift in very interesting ways. There's no Hogan yet, but things have been changing. So we want to get some feedback on how we're doing that there and what we need to know. Tara's going to get some more information. We don't know who she's going to connect to today. This is going to be interesting. Maybe more a tool. I'm not sure.
Okay.
All right. Who are we connected to?
It's actually 2, but one's going to let the other one speak. One is Sarah from the Atul, and the other is the Orange Lyran.
Oh, okay. So we got a Lyran and an Atul. Who's going to be doing the speaking?
Sarah, the Lyran said, be my guest.
Okay, so we're going to talk to Sarah, who is in 4D.
Yes.
And she's a service to others.
Yes.
And she's going to help us with our timeline jumping.
Yes.
Is there a better way to call this process? What would you call it?
Moving through doorways.
And these doorways lead to alternate timelines?
If you choose, yes, the doorway is you.
Okay, so it's my understanding that there's an infinite number of timelines, and we can consciously choose which timeline we want our consciousness to be on. Is that accurate?
Yes, for your consciousness is spread all over, much like the waters of the earth.
Okay. So you gave us a 5-step program on how to achieve this. Did we channel that information correctly? Is there more to it?
It's enough for you to know for now. Of course, everything is step by step by step, and there will be more added later and more on top of that. But for now, to get an idea of it, to start practicing, this is a good foundation. We want to start you at the beginning.
Okay, the steps were surprising to me because they really incorporate the ego. And it's been our goal to remove the ego and live without it. But you're saying that the ego is an integral part of these steps?
Yes, think of it like this. Perhaps you are locked away. You are sitting in jail, and you don't wish to make friends with your jailers. You wish to get out of the jail. But if you were clever, you would try to understand those that operate the jail, how they maneuver it, why they have placed people in, or perhaps you have placed yourself. And you want to get inside their head, so to speak. And if you can befriend this jailer, perhaps you can also utilize their information to let yourself out. Not having them let you out, but using their knowledge. Do not discard all the knowledge that is around you, whether you like them or not.
Okay, let's go through the steps as we understand them so far, if I can remember them correctly, since we are new to this. The first step is to figure out what the higher self wants. How can people do this effectively?
You have to have an intimate connection with what is in your heart. What is it your heart truly wants, aside from the ego? This is going back into that childlike spirit. Those of you that wanted to be astronauts and cowboys and princesses, whatever it may have been, go into that childlike essence within the heart, something that tells you without logic what is best for you, where you feel a draw towards it, you feel pulled towards it. It makes you happy just thinking about it. It feels like home. It feels right. But in order to get to that space, you have to be able to understand what that voice sounds like apart from what your ego sounds like. So perhaps a good silent practice, or you may call it a meditative practice, may help you to distinguish the difference between those two voices. I do know that there are many other voices in this universe trying to speak to you, but the two that are closest to you, your ego and your heart, when you can distinguish the two, then you begin to understand what it is that your heart truly wants.
Excellent. That brings us to step two. So, step one is to figure out what the heart or soul or higher self, whatever you want to call it, what that wants. So, is step two to listen to the ego and ask the ego why it wants these things?
Yes, the ego will always weigh in. No matter what is in your heart, what is on your mind, the ego will always have something to say. It's a constant chatterbox. So instead of trying to silence that chatterbox, let it chatter away. Oftentimes, there are those that do not know how much they give away, how much information, how much others can learn from them by the constant chatter they exude. And the ego is not mindful of this because it does not practice mindfulness. So let it chatter, chatter, chatter. What does it feel? What does it think about this thing that your heart desires?
Excellent. So, you let the ego chatter away, and in doing so, it will show you the blockages, correct?
Yes, because mixed within that chatter is also its programming, your programming, all of your traumas, all of your shadows, all of the programs of the matrix, programs given to you at birth and before birth within this matrix. Allow it to speak. It all comes through if you are willing to listen.
Okay, so step one, listen to the heart, figure out what the heart wants. Step two, listen to the ego, figure out what the ego wants. In doing so, you'll learn about your own blockages that the ego has put up for you. So that leads into step three, which is the healing, what we call the backpack method and the cube method. That's to heal the past traumas, reprogram the mind, or not the mind, reprogram the ego in order to remove those blockages. Would that be a good way to describe it?
Yes, because there is going to be somewhat of a difference between how the ego views that thing that your heart wants and what your heart wants. So, once you identify in that language that the ego is using, its own programming, its blockages, when you go back into your silence, your meditation, whatever form of healing you utilize, go in and find out where that program is actually stemming from. That blockage, where is it actually stemming from? And reprogram it. If it was programmed once, it can be programmed again.
And that's a topic for a whole nother video. We can't go into our cube method and our backpack method at this time, but essentially we're just healing from past traumas. Is that like an overall way to say it?
Yes, you don't want anything standing in the way of what your heart desires.
All right. So step 3 is maybe the more complicated for most. It requires a meditative practice. You have to be able to meditate. Is that a factual statement?
Yes, perhaps any form of silence, anything that brings your awareness to just the ego and just your heart, where those are the only two that you hear. Perhaps this could be done during meditation. Perhaps you have another method. But yes, a chance for silence.
Excellent. Which brings us to step 4 as we understand it. Step 4 is to allow all the potential timelines that include what you're looking for, what you're hoping to achieve, and choosing one. Could you explain this step a little further?
Once you have done the healing that is needed, and remember that healing is not a one-time thing, that is also a program that you may want to look into. But once you have done this initial healing and you look before you, perhaps it's something you see in your mind's eye, or perhaps a feeling, however you intuit information through your heart, and feel into these timelines, seeing at the end of it your goal, not that it is the end of your life, but just where you wish to go. I wish to, you are mentioning your Hogan. I wish to go to my Hogan. And you will see all these different roads, much like the roots of a tree, twisting and turning, leading you to your ultimate destination for that goal. Which one of them feels most appropriate? Which one of them feels like that pull, that initial pull you had when you first came up with this idea, when the heart said, go here, and it felt like home? Which of those paths, one of those twisting and turning paths, feels like home?
Fantastic. Tara and I have been doing this meditation together since we do believe that we are one soul that's come together now. Is this more effective for us to choose the same timeline or as best as we can?
As best as you can, yes. For you are both in your own realities, yet at the same time you share a reality. Perhaps it is more effective, but I don't want to use that word, as I don't want to exclude others. But perhaps it is more enjoyable when there is a separate soul that yet is the same soul, with a common focus, a common desire, each with their own shadows and limitations, but yet each having the same strengths as well as weaknesses, willing to work together, willing to heal together to get the ultimate goal at the end of the twisty road.
Right. So, twin flame or not, when multiple people come together with the same goal, that multiplies the power of the manifestation.
Exactly. This is why we say you are a collective of one. Remember this, and all is possible.
All right. So, now step 5, as we understand it, is an easy one. It's to be open and allowing of all healing that needs to happen on this new timeline. Could you talk more about this step?
Yes. So once you have chosen a timeline, twisting and turning, but it feels like home, it feels so right. Well, this is not a straight and easy path. Nothing ever is. Because easy does not allow you to learn. It does not allow you to grow. In fact, it is quite the opposite. This is an inverted sense of understanding. So, you welcome in any and all lessons that will help you to grow, to learn, to expand your consciousness so that you may reach your ultimate goal. It is not enough to pick a timeline or a path and say, I will go there, and poof, you are there, having done no healing, having done no self reflection, having never looked into your own darkness as well as your light, and seeing that everyone is just a mirror of you. Everything is reflection, everything is a journey, everything is healing. And when you consciously align yourself with your subconscious, your heart, and that you are willing to accept, as you are willing to accept all lessons when you first came into this cube, you wanted to grow, you wanted to understand, to help each other so that you can ultimately ascend if that was your choice. Well, the same is true here. Again, I accept full responsibility for all the healing that comes my way so that I may reach my ultimate goal. So, when difficulties arise, or perhaps old shadows arise, old programming, you might be more apt to stop yourself from this. I wish this wasn't happening right now. Well, indeed, you did wish it was happening right now because you have a goal in mind. So you might be more willing to accept it and learn from it and thank it for being there in the first place.
This conversation is so synchronistic. Maybe it's because my higher self's involved, the orange cat. So that leads me to my next question perfectly. So after we did our Hogan timeline shift, our well completely broke down. And at first we thought, oh my goodness, this is horrible. Our well's not working. But as we tapped in and learned about the situation, we started to understand that this was in alignment with our Hogan timeline. Could you explain how this broken well fit into our new manifestation?
Yes, you had to realize that you were the ones that, quote unquote, broke your well. And think of it, all the water below the surface, rushing up, rising to the surface, much like your manifestations just below the surface are now ready to rise up and rush to the surface. But also wanting to be in alignment with the peoples that you connect with so deeply, remembering that we had a deep connection with water and that your goal is to bring that fertility, that growth, that abundance that water was so precious in our being, bringing it back to the surface so that all beings on the surface as well as below would live in harmony. So you were trying to remind yourselves that with this rushing water, you were trying to bring back the lake. You were trying to bring back the water in remembering what happened to us, the people, so long ago, yet happening right now, ascending in that connection with water. It was water that was our teacher and water that is your teacher.
Wow, fascinating. So you've given us these 5 simple steps. Could you please give us the next part of the puzzle that we don't yet understand?
The next understanding is that when you choose a timeline, your ego is also trying to choose its own timeline, and you may not be aware. So sometimes, with those lessons, with those blockages, is really an alternate timeline working against the timeline that you wish. You may call your timeline a light or positive polarity timeline. You might call your ego's timeline a dark or negative polarity timeline. These two timelines residing both within you, also working against each other. If you can find a way to sync up these timelines while still reaching your ultimate goal, while still trying to remove the ego, thus removing the alternate timeline, but learning from it as best you can, you will more quickly get to your end goal.
Okay. Wow. So that's a lot for us to chew on, a lot for us to work with. Man, I do appreciate you sharing all this information with us. Um, I don't want to end this channeling yet. I have so many more questions. Uh, what advice can you give the people who might not understand fully what we're talking about right now?
There is no need to wrap your head around everything. Do not feel that you're being left behind, or that if I don't get this, I may not ever achieve what it is that I wish. You are all choosing timelines right now, whether you are aware of it or not. You are all making promises to yourself. You are all learning and you are all growing. So the main focus here is to try to understand both the shadow and the light in all situations. If you are going through a rough time, try to understand why and take your power back. This is not happening to you. You asked for it, whether it was subconsciously, whether it was at a soul level, whether it was before you came in to this cube matrix. You had asked for it. And if you did, even though that might be pretty hard to swallow, then you also have the power to overcome it. So do not worry about all these steps at the moment. First, try to take responsibility for everything that happens within your life. Whether you label it good or bad, it all just is. And there you take your power back. When you take your power back, then we can play with the magic.
Thank you so much, Sarah. You've helped us so much in our journey, as have the rest of the Atul. I cannot show enough gratitude for you and for my higher self who's in the background. So I want to say thank you. I love you. Do you have any last message for the people before we head out?
Well, he has been quite a gentleman, allowing me to speak. He wanted to jump in just in case I was missing anything. So perhaps we will let him have the last word. Remember that all of this has already occurred, just as it has not occurred, yet you are also in the present. So if time does not exist, then focus on what is now. The now. What do you want to do now? And why? That is all you need to know. The rest is up to you.
Okay, all right. Timeline jumping.
Okay. Whew.
So I think the takeaway is that we're always timeline jumping. It's just most of us are doing it with our egos. There's so much ego that we just let the ego run the show and it chooses the reality. But what we're talking about here is letting the higher self choose the reality.
Yeah, I think what it came down to, both beings, was just these steps are just so that you're more conscious of what's actually happening in like the blink of an eye, like every minute of every day. Like it's always just happening. But if we can break it down, make you aware of what's happening, then you might have a little bit more control over it, especially if you're like really connected to the heart space. She was very, very focused on heart space. It's like really warm right here.
Right, we don't want to let the ego control things. We want to use it as a key. Basically a key to unlock the door that she was speaking of. So that the ego will tell you where the blockages are, and then you use that ego to heal those blockages, and then you kind of just discard the ego as best you can.
Yeah, she was showing that there's no malice in anything. You know, the ego is, of course, your matrix version of you, just as the heart is also you. So yeah, she didn't want like there's no like good guy, bad guy. It's like everything is just meant for learning. I just don't wish to stay in the matrix, so I'm not going to have any use for this guy anymore, but I do want to know everything it knows so that I can help myself.
Lot to think about, lot to heal about.
Yeah.
Lot to talk about.
So
in the comment section.
Yeah, in the comments, let us know like what your higher self says. Tap into that heart space. What did your heart have to say about this? Whether it agreed, disagreed, had some different points of view. We're open to it. We love discussions, so let us know.
And the day has passed, but you want to wish any special blessings to people today?
Oh yes, so happy autumnal equinox for everyone. Today is equal day and equal night, and also for all my pagans out there, happy Mabon. Today is the second harvest, reaping rewards. So whether you're actually harvesting something like corn, which we're pretty close to harvesting our corn, but all other aspects of your life, things that you're harvesting at this time. Today is a beautiful day for reflection. So
All right.
anyway, we will catch you guys next time then. Keep those ideas flowing, those questions. We love questions for future channelings. And
Just like all comments, whatever you want to say.
yeah, basically, let's just chat.
We're doing this for the comments, really.
Yeah.
That's all we care about.
We do it for the comments. All right, so we will catch you guys next Monday. All right, bye.
Adios.